Hi everyone. My name is Laura Haynes. My husband Derek and I have 3 children, born about 2 years apart. Jenna, who's 7, Anna, who's 5, and Troy, who's 3.5. He does not like it when we say he's 3, he's 3.5. We love raising our children on our small farm, and we really love our time spent outside with them. My children bring frogs and rabbits into my house. It's constantly a battle about where dirty boots belong, and our nighttime routine looks and sounds like a wrestling match. From the outside, our parenting experience is beautiful and chaotic and fun. But what maybe a lot of you don't know is that my experience as a mother of young children was complicated mostly behind the scenes by significant postpartum depression. It was, and still is, a shock to me that it happened with each child and that it was so severe. I love being a mother, and we definitely knew God had been calling us to parenthood, so it didn't make any rational sense that I was experiencing this depression. In fact, so much of the earliest times with each of my first 2 children, Jenna and Anna, was spent kind of mired in this depression that even though we wanted a larger family, we decided we shouldn't have any more biological children because there was a serious concern about how difficult that would be for me. Well, spoiler alert, as most of you know, after the birth of our 2 daughters, I became unexpectedly pregnant with our son. So if I can, let me set the scene for you. At that time, I had 2 daughters, age 4 and age 2, a full-time, pretty stressful career outside of the home. I was dealing with postpartum depression and now an unplanned pregnancy. I was absolutely terrified about what was to come. The specifics of what I went through with depression during those earliest years of my children's lives are not important. I would like it to suffice to say that at times, parenting my young children was a really dark time for me. Today, though, it's very important to me that it doesn't come across that my experience as a mother of young children was uniquely hard. I'm confident that others who are parents of young children have had similar hidden struggles, maybe some with depression, but if not, there are other things that make your journey burdensome. Thankfully, I no longer deal with depression, but more difficult times have happened since then with my young children, and I know more times are coming in the future that are hard too. I have not forgotten what Jesus had taught me during those early years, and I'm happy to share how he brought me joy despite my depression when it didn't seem probable. I felt postpartum depression was unique because, as if the depression's not hard enough, the struggles that come with raising young infants and children are still there. The depression is just making it harder. Although there were a ton of things that I could have chosen, there were 2 things I think that I struggled with the most, and I think many mothers of young children could agree with me. The first is sleep, and the second is something I've called the dream of motherhood. So let's start with sleep. Listen, my babies never slept. That's not an exaggeration. And I know some of you moms out there right now are thinking, yeah, but did she try X, Y, or Z? Let me tell you, I tried it twice. Yes, I swaddled. Yes, I did sleep training. Yes, we did cry it out. I had a sound machine. I read books. I tried method after method. I was that bleary-eyed mother driving babies in the middle of the night to make them stop crying. I pushed strollers at 2 a.m. on my back porch. Anna once screamed so much at night that the doctor sent me to the emergency room. There was absolutely nothing wrong with her, but they couldn't make her stop crying and sleep either. Derek once had to put Troy on a tractor in the middle of the night to calm him down. That one did work, by the way. I don't think you can underestimate the impact the lack of sleep can have on mood and health. Sleep deprivation is a form of torture for a reason, right? Undoubtedly, this lack of sleep was worsening my depression. I would be so tired sometimes that I wondered if I was safe to drive or prescribe medicine at work or take care of my babies. To get through this time, I learned, probably for the first time in my life, that I could depend on Jesus for physical strength. I started relying on verses that reminded me of how strong I could be when I put my trust in him. There wasn't one specific one, but verses like Psalm 91 that remind us that whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. And Isaiah 40:29 is posted in my kitchen. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. I learned I literally had access to his power, and each day, each time I needed it, each sleepless night, he sustained me. When I got a firm grip on realizing my power and strength didn't come from a good night's sleep, this area of parenting got easier for me. The other major area I struggled with was the dream of motherhood. I think every mother goes into this phase of life with a dream or an idea or goal of how we want it to go. Even those of us who say we don't have that dream, we still fall victim to realizing we had certain ideals in our minds about how we would raise our children and how our families would look. And most of us mothers can also say that dream rarely works out exactly as we have envisioned. For me, a big dream I had was not to work outside of the home when I had children. For many reasons, this wasn't what was in store for me, but I was unable to give up the dream. I allowed the fact that I worked to affect every part of my life as a mother and a wife when my babies were first born, and I often used it as an excuse. I'm allowed to be irritable because I work. I have 3 children. Devotions? Who has time? I work, for heaven's sakes. Help out at church? Not happening. The list goes on. Inwardly, it was eating me alive that I was not allowed to be, or I was not able to be the mother I had planned to be. I couldn't let go of what I had pictured motherhood to look like. For me, it was working outside of the home, but maybe for others it was breastfeeding or the number of children we had, where they went to school, where we live, etc. Well, one day I was driving home from work when I was about 8 months pregnant with Troy, and I was praying about how I honestly had no idea how I was going to make it through having this 3rd baby. How was I going to manage the depression that I knew was coming, the sleeplessness, my career? Well, 2 things happened during that prayer specifically that changed my thinking. First, I had the terrifying, and now retrospectively beautiful, realization that I had come 100% completely to the end of my abilities, and the only way I could physically, mentally, spiritually make it through this was through him. In Sunday school recently, we were talking about how when you come to the end of yourself and realize he's the only one who has the power to care for you, that's when real faith develops. This realization that I couldn't do it anymore helped me see that I really hadn't been doing it on my own the whole time. Since the depression began, since the babies came, since before I was born, he had been holding me up, and this inevitably makes you realize he's faithful to continue holding you up. The second thing that happened that day was God spoke to me that he had made me a mother today, in this situation, in this circumstance, right now. He had prepared me to be a mother just like this. He could have allowed me to be a stay-at-home mom or fill in the blank of whatever your motherhood dream was, but he didn't. It sounds really cliched, but when I wrapped my head around the fact that I was designed to be a mom just the way I was, I began to be free of the weight of what I thought it would look like. I began to humble myself to his plan for me as a mother. It didn't happen instantly, but I stopped seeing my circumstances as burdens, but instead blessings. I stopped using working motherhood as an excuse, but rather as a power. I realized, as Proverbs 16:9 says, that a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And I was reminded that God was able to do abundantly more than I could ask or think. I started allowing my children and my family to see the power that God was giving me to do both, my career and be their mom. The balance has never gotten easier, but I am a joyful mother despite it, and I'm grateful for his plan for our family. So, in conclusion, when I think about my children growing up and becoming parents one day, I often think about what I want to tell them about becoming a mother or a father. When I think about that future conversation, I don't think about telling them about postpartum depression or about the sleeplessness or how they're probably going to have to buy that dreaded minivan. No, what I think about telling them is all the examples of his faithfulness to me as a mother, and how I'm confident whatever their journey toward motherhood looks like or doesn't look like, he's sufficient for that, and he can be the source of their joy as he is mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and that's good enough. No, I have a different story. I'm at a different phase in life. My name is Rosanne Horst, for those of you who don't know me. I've been part of this church since I was 4. As a matter of fact, the first Sunday that our family visited was the day that they were dedicating the building from Williamson. It was 1980. I was in the carport, and I was wearing a little green puffy coat with a fur hood. I clearly remember that. Things that stand out in your mind. I've been married to my best friend for 24 years, and somehow that happened. I'm not quite sure how the years passed. There's been a lot of life that we've lived, and now we're here. And I began my dream profession of being a mom at 21 years ago, which again seems really odd that many years have passed. So what I'm sharing with you today are just some of my thoughts and reflections of where I'm at with life at this point. And so when Pastor Dave asked me, it was finding joy in the journey as a mom of young adults and teens. And I didn't mention this in first, but I was like, sure. And he looked at me like, really? And I was like, oh, well, sure, yeah. But I guess I feel like if God has given me some things to share, then it would be a disgrace not to share them with what he's doing and what he's taught me. So keep that in mind. That's what I'm just sharing, simply what God has been doing in my life. So 3 points I want to look at today. The first one, simply finding. What does it mean to find? And I went to a definition in dictionary.com, the best place to look, right? One of the definitions, according to that, is to discover or to perceive after consideration, as in to find something to be true. So to discover or perceive after consideration, as in to find something to be true. And so in this case, to find something is an action. It's something you're doing. It's active. It's not passive. It doesn't happen per chance. It's an action for the one who is seeking. As a mom, I've first off learned to discover who I am, and I'm still in the process of doing that. I don't think we ever end doing that. And Laura, if I had learned that at your age, when I was that age, then maybe that would have helped me more today. But a verse that's really precious is Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. Does your soul know that? What is it that makes me, me? Seeking God is another thing as you discover, seeking God. Lamentations 3:25, the Lord is good to those who wait for him and to the soul who seeks him. A wise friend once shared this nugget of wisdom with me, that being the healthiest version of you is the best gift that you can give to your parents. Well, but now I'm thinking about that in reverse with my children. My desire for our children is that they are the healthiest version of who they are, and that can only come with a reliance on no one other than Jesus Christ himself. So practically, a few principles that I want to remember in the finding part of this journey is, number one, to allow my children to find out and discover who they are. Just because I think they would be great at something doesn't mean it's right for them or the right path that they're to take. It's just them. And so what I can do, though, is encourage them to pray and to seek wisdom and guidance from the Lord. That is something I can do in them finding and seeking. Number two, I can believe in them and support them as they find and discover life unfolding before them. I had someone describe to me one time that parenting is kind of like coaching. Coaching, when you're the coach of a team, you work with your team during practices. You teach them drills. You do warm-ups. You exercise. You get in shape for the game. You do all that. You demonstrate. You walk alongside of them. However, in a game, a coach doesn't get on the field and play the game for the players. They're the coach. They're on the sidelines. They're there to kind of give pointers, but not really to do anything other than just be there and be the coach in the game of life, or in the game. So applying that to life then, as our kids get older, I now have the coach role. Life is their game. I can't play it for them. It's their life, and that's hard sometimes to watch them. But I'm their coach in the sense that I can guide, and I'm learning, though, at this stage in parenting that I have to keep my mouth closed like 99.9% of the time, and that's kind of hard because I like to talk and I like to give my advice, but it's not needed as much. Here's a quote that I found from hidingintheclosetwithcoffee.com. It isn't our job to shield our kids from the struggles in life, but rather to help them see they are strong enough to make it through the struggles. Number 3 that I've learned in finding, be available whatever time of the day, evening or night it is. And along with that, if a suggestion is made or an offer, take it. Life's too short to ignore it. And lastly, I kind of made reference to this just a few minutes ago, to keep my mouth closed and my ears open. As uncomfortable as it is at times, silence is okay. Sometimes all that's needed is just to be known by my presence. And sharing my opinions too freely can squelch the discovery that my teens and young adults need to do on their own. Another quote from Esther Joy Goetz that I found. She has a Moms of Bigs blog. What if it became less about telling our kids who they should be and more about finding who they already are? And I just thought that was kind of stood out to me. That's, my job, again, is to help them to discover who they are, most importantly, though, in Christ. Finding. The next word I want to look at is joy. So finding the joy. What does that mean? Well, joy is not always happy. It's not always a happy feeling. And how can I have joy even when I'm sad or sorrowful? Joy is an action again. It's a decision. It's a choice. And it's a result of finding my fullness in Jesus Christ. Psalm 121:1 is one of my favorite verses. I lift my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. And Nehemiah 8:10b, do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is my strength. So my prayer is to remember that joy is in the hard times and happy times. And how do I find joy in the journey? For me, number 1, I've found is praise. Just praising the Lord, singing or playing worship music. Tyler bought me a Bluetooth speaker for Christmas this year, and I love it. Well, I had borrowed his, and he probably got tired of me borrowing his. But anyway, I said, I don't want a big monster one, just a small one that I can play really loud. So I love doing that when I'm alone, working outside or just inside in the kitchen, just playing worship music, reflecting on who God is. What has he done? What is he doing? How is he working today? Secondly, prayer. Finding solace and comfort in the presence of Jesus realigns my heart, which in turn restores my soul, and that leads to calmness and a joy within. Patience. Well, joy and patience. That's a tough one for me because I like to know now, or even yesterday, what's going on. But taking time to rest, to slow down, and to not wish for the next phase for my kids equals joy. And another small thing that I want to remember is to treasure the small comments, the actions or gestures of kindness, and then keep them private. I don't need to broadcast with everyone what my kids have done or just the things that they've done for me, but I can tuck them away and remember that when I need a moment and just pull it out of the happy box, mainly mental with that, even, So finding the joy in the journey, the third thing, journey. And I've found it's a process. A journey is a process. And again, it's an action word. So all these are all actions. The process began letting go the very moment that each of my children left my womb. Each milestone that our kids achieved was one more step on their journey to becoming an adult, and one more step for me watching them become an adult. Letting go means to trust. Trust in the Lord ultimately. Trust in the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Trusting my children. I truly want what God has for our children, and only He knows the path that they'll take. What I desire for them is simply that, my desire. So I choose to believe in them and trust that they are capable of doing life on their own, and knowing that God will direct their paths. Letting go is an action on this journey, and so I have 3 choices. 1, I can pine for the past and mourn what once was and wallow in self-pity, sort of. 2, I can wish away the present, looking ahead to what's next, yet overlook what's happening now. Or 3, I can rest in today, knowing that God's grace is sufficient, His mercy never ends, and His faithfulness is great. I want to rest in that number 3 one. So holding on to Jesus in the journey, that's my prayer, and that is my prayer for our children today. that they would remember that. In conclusion, I just want to wrap up the 3 points that I hit. Finding, to seek Jesus with all your heart and with all my heart. 2, joy, it doesn't equal happiness. It is contentment. It's contentment in Christ and with who you are made to be. And the journey, it's a process. Each of us are running the race with perseverance, and that's my desire. Hebrews 12, 1 through 2a, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. May my heart never stop seeking the God of the mountain and the God of the valley. And may my children seek the same God with all of their hearts too. I love you, Tyler, Lindsay, and Cole. Oh, I thought I could make it through second service. Thank you for the incredible blessing and privilege it is to be your mom.
Good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kayle Buchanan. I am Grant Buchanan's wife, and we have a son. His name is Emmett, and he's 10 months old. So today I'm going to focus more on my spiritual mothers and who they were. And because I'm still learning to be a mother, obviously I haven't been a mother very long. But I do appreciate all the advice from Rosanne and Laura. But first I just want to start by talking about my mom a little bit, because I don't want to discredit my mom. She has taught me many things growing up, and she's always been a wonderful mother to my brothers and I. And she's taught me to be caring, kind, and mostly selfless. I always took that away from her. She's always been very selfless, not only to her children, but to really everyone, and she continues to show that through being Emmett's grandmother, so I just really appreciate her and all she does for me. But something that I did not acquire from my mother was my faith. I had to seek out other women in my life, and I don't resent my mom for that. She didn't grow up in a religious background, so it just wasn't something that she knew or something that we practiced when I was growing up in my family. So my spiritual mothers are the ones who really guided me, and they're the ones I'm going to talk about today. So the first lady that I think of her name is Sandy. She was my neighbor when I was growing up. Sandy had 5 children, and so I spent a lot of time up at her house playing with her children, and our mothers would take turns taking us to school. And I just remember when Sandy would take us to school, we would sing worship songs, and she would tell us stories about Jesus. And so that was something that really was impactful to me, because I was very young, and that was really not probably the first exposure I ever had to Jesus, but just she really instilled that in my life. And something she told me was that seeds were being planted in my heart. Because I didn't really understand the things or the stories she may have been telling me at the time, because I was pretty young, but those seeds, she told me, were being planted, and someday they would bloom. And I still hold on to that, and I think of that often. And she taught me a verse. It's Psalm 91, 1 through 2, which is also something that Laura mentioned, but it's, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust." And that's something that I've carried with me, and I've memorized since I was young, and as I was growing up, I would recite that verse if I felt scared or I felt like I was in danger. I felt like I could trust God, because He would deliver me from evil, and I knew He would keep me safe. So the next person that I'd like to talk about, her name was Coetta Ramsey, to me, she was Mrs. Ramsey. She was my second grade teacher, and through her, I started going to Good News Camp. And she's also the one that helped me ask Jesus into my heart. So she played a really big role in my life. And through Good News Camp, obviously, she taught us Bible stories. And she just really helped me understand the true foundation of my faith, and just helped build on that, which I had already, what I had been exposed to through Sandy, she really helped me build. Unfortunately, she did pass away before my senior year when high school. She had brain cancer, and I was really sad to hear that. That was really upsetting. But after my senior year, after I graduated, I received a letter in the mail that was addressed to me from her, which I thought was strange because obviously she had passed away. But she would do something. She would send out $2 bills to all her students who had been in her class. And her husband carried on that tradition until all her classes were finished that she had. And I just remember thinking, first off, it just kind of reminded me of her, and it was really special to me. And it reminded me how many people she inspired, not just children through Good News Camp, but other people as well. And she was just very influential in my life and influential to others. So the next person I want to talk about is her name is Wanda. She's my grandmother, and I refer to her as Nanny. She lived in Hershey, Pennsylvania, or she still does, and I would go stay with them sometimes, her and my grandfather, and they would take us to church sometimes on Sundays, and that was really important to me. I always remember those times and how much I really enjoyed going to church, because that was really the only time I got to go to church growing up. Her and my grandfather also bought me my first Bible, and I will never forget it. It was a pink King James Version Bible, and I was pretty eager and excited when I got it, and I read it cover to cover. And I think I was about probably 14 then, and being that it was a King James, I'm not really sure that I even understood what I was reading, but it goes back to what Sandy had told me about the seeds, and that's kind of how that topic came up for us. I told her that I had read that Bible, and she told me that the seeds were being planted, and that it was okay that I didn't quite understand all of it, but the seeds were being planted, so they would later develop into something. So every Christmas, I started reading the story of Christmas from the Bible, and then I also started initiating going to church on Christmas Eve. I wanted my whole family to go, and really that was something that was kind of difficult for me, because growing up, especially being young and growing up in a family who doesn't really have a religious background, that's really tough, and to kind of bring those things up and go against what everybody else's maybe beliefs are is really hard, especially when you're really young. But my grandmother, my nanny, gave me the confidence to do that. She always was that push that I needed, and she always gave the confidence to believe in, share my beliefs and believe what I believed in and just be myself. So I just wanted to share, recently I went to Florida to visit her because they go to Florida in the winter months. They have a house there. And so I went to visit them, and it was just really special. I just really enjoyed that time, and we watched church in the morning on live stream from her home church. And we took many walks together and just talked about where we're at in our faith walk, and just some things about, beliefs. And she just continues to push me to stand up for what I believe in, especially in the world that we live in today. That's hard sometimes. So she just continues to push me and give the confidence I need. So I appreciate her for that. And the last person I wanted to mention today is my mother-in-law, Mana. She has instilled and spoke the truth of God's word to me. She has really just helped me grow my faith deeper and deeper, and truly helped me understand God's word. And she showed me how to be faithful to the Lord no matter the circumstance, no matter, sometimes we go through really tough times, but we need to continue to show the Lord our faithfulness to him, even though it's tough sometimes and we don't always understand what the reason is for things that happen. And she has just led by example, and she's really showed me the power of prayer and how important that is, and how to effectively be in prayer, whether it's for yourself or for others. So, and I feel like I can look to her for help, to help me in times of despair, and she'll direct me the right way, whether it's easy or not. She really, like my nanny, gives me that confidence push that I need sometimes to stand up for what I believe in. And she just continues to guide me and direct me to be a mother of faith in raising Emmett, which is very important, because being a mother in today's world can be tough, especially being a Christian. And I think you really need that person in the faith that can help you raise your children to know God. So that is really important to me, and she's been that person in my life. So in conclusion, as a mother now, I see how important it is to instill faith into our children. And if it weren't for my spiritual mothers, I question would I know who Jesus was? And I know the answer, probably not, because they are really the ones that exposed me to that and made me more interested. So that's why I enjoy teaching children, because it goes back to the seeds. I enjoy planting those seeds for them. And I would challenge each of us, whether we're a mother, a father, or even a young person, it doesn't matter. We can all be influential to somebody. And I think that's really important. We should be definitely spreading God's word. So I just wanted to share or read Philippians 1:9-11. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in knowledge and understanding, for I want you to understand what really matters, so that you may live pure and blameless lives until the day of Christ's return. May you always be filled with the fruit of your salvation, the righteous character produced in your life by Jesus Christ, for this will bring much glory and praise to God. I just think we should strive to want and pray for others to have what we have, the relationship that we have with Christ, and spread the word to others. I think it's very important. I would challenge each of us to do that, especially in our children. And I just wanted to thank Pastor Dave for asking me to speak today. I really feel honored that you asked me, and thank you everyone for listening, and I just want to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day.